Hey folks, Pat here from DNS, and this Madison area fishing report is current as of Friday, August 22nd. Well, happy Friday, everybody. We made it through another week, and of course, a lot of stuff to talk about. We've been really busy here at the shop, too, so hopefully I can knock this out quick. One quick thing I wanted to share with folks is pretty cool. A good friend of the shop here, Raleigh, brought this in, and it's a clipping from the Milwaukee Journal, July 23rd, 1954. Talking about Lake Mendota, and it says here in the headline, Lake Mendota is a veritable perch factory with no indication of production stoppage. And if you pay attention to these reports, you know that that's not exactly the case these days. But it is a really neat article to look back on the history and stuff. But yeah, he talks about hearing about 25 fish limits in 10 minutes. And then so he came over to do this story. They had 5 guys in the boat. His luck wasn't as good. They got their 5-man limit of 125 fish in an hour and a half. So yeah, things are a little different now. Also an interesting thing in the article is Arthur Hassler, who's an esteemed limnologist from the UW, commented in the article that Mendota only gets about 5% of the fishermen it should. And then the author goes on to say, in other words, he would like to see 95 times more anglers working on those perch. So I guess maybe be careful what you wish for there, because I know in the 60s and 70s they were getting pounded. And now, yeah, we're struggling with perch out there. But we'll talk about that later in the report. I'll have this behind the counter if anybody wants to actually read it. But yeah, this is just a pretty cool piece of history. Thanks to Raleigh for bringing that in. A little bit of shop news. We got frogs still. It's still frogging time. A lot of weeds out there. You'll be hearing about a lot of weeds in this report. And weed lines. And, we talk about the Gene rig here and the Monona rig. Both great options if you're fishing weed edges for bluegills, but also drifting out over deep water for suspended gills. And I still don't have much here nothing on the door at all. So yeah, if you've got an event you'd like to promote, especially if it's fishing related or in the neighborhood here on the north side of Madison, feel free to bring in a poster. We're happy to put that stuff up. Before we get into the report, just another announcement here. The Madison Bass Club is hosting their Fall Classic on Saturday. It looks like they have 50 boats, but they'll be launching out of the Green Lantern on the north end of Waubesa over here. So they won't be taking up any public launches, but they do have 50 boats out there, and they'll be, so you might notice more. Most of those folks will just stay on the lower chain, mostly Monona and Waubesa, maybe down to Kegonsa. Very few go all the way up into Mendota. But anyway, just a heads up there. There is another small tournament on Sunday on Mendota, but it's only 10 boats, so you probably won't notice that. Weather-wise, we got a bunch more rain last Saturday, but we've been mostly dry and cooler since then. The forecast ahead looks for temps in the upper 60s and low 70s through next week. So, gosh, that's what we've all been waiting for, I'm sure. So make sure you get out there and enjoy those comfortable temps and do some fishing. The Mendota buoy, where we at 76.5 degrees right now. So that's down 3 degrees or so from this time last week. It just goes to show you what some of those cooler nights will do. And I feel like, gosh, every week in these reports, I've just been feel like I'm harping on people about temps and muskies and stuff like that. I think we'll be good to go, especially with this cooler weather on the way. The lake temps are dropping down nicely. But yeah, so we'll be able to give that a break. Same thing for trout, too. Water quality around the chain, from what I hear, has been good. And, the Dane County Public Health site reflects that. It looks like Vilas Park over there by the zoo has maybe a little bit of algae going on. Troll Park is over by Mount Horeb. But yeah, around the chain, conditions look good, and that's what I've heard. I was hearing about some funky green water down on Kegonsa, but I also heard that has kind of cleared up as well. So as far as the report goes, we're still pretty much on summer cruise control, where not much is going to change until things really start to cool down here in the fall. That being said, though, generally speaking, outside weed edges are probably your best bet for finding most species of fish this time of year, especially panfish, although some gills are being found suspended over deep water and congregating on mid-lake humps. Otherwise, with the weeds being very thick in many shallow areas around town, shore fishing for panfish can be a challenge. But if you can find pockets in the weeds or places where the weed cutters have been through, you can still find good fishing. For gills, spikes or waxworms on an ice jig, or redworms on a little bit bigger jig work well. For crappies, crappie minnows or small minnow-shaped plastics on a jig under a bobber is a pretty safe bet. The perch front has still been pretty quiet out there. I've been hearing about some fish being caught here and there, but nothing really consistent. Weedlines are definitely a good place to start looking for those fish. Largemouth bass have been doing well up shallow with any number of presentations working, but again, with the weeds being thick, weedless plastics and topwater frogs are going to be your best bet there. Smallmouth bass are being found up shallow early and late in the day, but for the most part, they move off to cooler, deeper, rocky areas in the middle of the day. There again, any number of slower artificial presentations will work, but drop shotting, slip bobbering, or jigging a fathead minnow, a blacktail chub, and especially crawlers have been very effective lately. It sounds like the walleye bite around town has slowed recently, especially on Mendota. I hear the fish are out there, just not sure why they've been tight-lipped. If you're fishing for shore, from shore for walleye, it's been tough all summer with the weeds and water temps being high. But if you're in a boat, work rocky weed lines on rocky shoreline breaks near shallow flats during the day and move up onto those shallow flats during low light periods. Otherwise, working weed edges or right in the weeds on mid-lake humps is usually a pretty safe bet to find walleyes in the middle of the summer like this. But like I said, the last week or a little more, it's been pretty quiet out there, at least from the folks I talk to. But no matter where you fish on the live bait side of things, minnows will definitely catch walleye, but crawlers have been working best lately, as is typical for a summer walleye bite. Speaking of crawlers, I've also heard some reports of folks getting some fish trolling crawler harnesses on Lake Mendota. If it's pike you're after, they'll grab just about any lure you throw at them. Weed lines will always hold fish, but in the summer you might find them hanging out a little bit deeper or even suspended over deep water. The musky action's been very, very slow this year, especially with the long stretches of warm water and warm weather this summer. But like I said, these cooler temps that are on the way have the fish in a better mood, and the long-range forecast looks great for muskies. As for trout, all the rain we've had has had our local creeks pretty dirty the last couple weeks, so I haven't heard much in the way of reports, but I would think headwater and feeder creeks should be good to go. Certainly by now, and some of your bigger water is also starting to clear up from what I hear. As always, I'll talk more about trout, though, in my Happy Fly Day feature at the end of the report. We can get into a little more detail here. Cherokee, still a weedy mess. It's going to be a weedy mess even when the ice comes, but that's what makes it awesome up there for bluegills. But you can launch a small craft at the school road launch here and get out in the main channel. There've been some decent action for bass and a lot of smaller pike and some panfish up there. 113 bridge areas, just a nice mixed bag this time of year. I've been hearing about the occasional walleye, occasional catfish, some decent action on panfish. One guy got into a bunch of perch over there the other day. You just never really know what you'll find. I always tell people it's at least worth a look. But speaking of the catfish, they've moved back out into the main lake here. You never know where you'll find them. They're just kind of cruising around. Folks have been getting them on crawlers. Stink bait's been working pretty well, and you really never know where you'll run into them. I talk to people bluegill fishing that catch them on tiny redworms, and I talk to people that are trolling for walleyes and get them. So they're out there and around. Otherwise, on Mendota, weed lines are really all you need to know to find a nice mixed bag of fish, especially bluegills. But I'm hearing about good numbers of gills, like I said, on mid-lake humps the last several weeks. So places like Dunn's Bar, Brearley Bar, Second Point, Commodore Bar are all great spots. But if you're on weed lines, you might stumble onto some crappies there and maybe some perch. But those bites have both been pretty slow. But some of those perch I have heard have been out as deep in as deep as 20 feet of water, and the bluegills too are running that deep in some cases. Largemouth bass are mostly up shallow and in the weeds. Smallmouth bass are being found in rocky shoreline breaks, mostly during the day. They move up a little shallower during low light periods. And like I said before, walleye have been pretty tight-lipped lately, but look to weed lines and on those same rocky shoreline breaks near shallow flats and right up in the weeds on sunny days. Usually mid-lake humps are full of walleyes on Mendota, but it's been a bit of a head scratcher as to where they've been lately. Pike are pretty much everywhere. I would focus on weed edges. The Tenny Park breakwall over here had a nice mixed bag of fish. I've been hearing about some good bass moving in there, and a few walleye even in the evening, a couple catfish too. The area below the Tenny Locks has been good. Every time we get a heavy rain and those water levels come up, it's pushing more water through this river. That pushes more fish up out of Lake Monona. They're swimming up there, I guess, to see what's going on or something. But I've been hearing about some good bluegills, bass, and the occasional walleye in the Yahara River there. Otherwise, down on Monona, for the most part, gills are hanging out on weed lines, but they're still being found suspended out over deep water, 10 to 15 feet down, although it sounds like those fish are scattered lately. So your best bet would probably be to focus on weed lines. At least that's where a lot of the success I hear about is happening. For gills, though, like I said in the intro, the Monona or Gene rig is great on the weed lines and drifting for those suspended fish. Spikes, waxworms, and redworms are all working well. I don't hear about many crappies other than over here by the Monona Terrace wall, where they like to hang out all summer. Crappie minnows are working well over there. The wall has also been turning out some good walleyes after dark, although that's kind of scattered. Pike on Monona can be found pretty much anywhere. Just start on weed edges. I'm sure you'll find fish. And like I said before, with the water temps down, the musky fishing should only get better through this next week. And I have heard about a couple nice fish coming in already. The weed cutters have been out over here on Monona Bay, and I drove by there the other day. It looked like great casting all along Brittingham Beach, and the triangles look good. And the water being up a little bit helps too with that. Winger's got a ton of tiny bluegills, as always. Some good bass action in there. Very weedy. There's really just kind of a patch out here in the middle that I guess is fishable. So I'm not sure muskies. Not a lot of room to cast for muskies, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, yeah, back on Monona. A lot of good fish coming off the rock pile over here down the south end. Also in Turville Bay, weed pockets and edges. Also Wee Chubbuck, formerly known as Squaw Bay. Same thing there. If you can find a weed edge or pockets, you'll probably find some panfish. But again, I was struck by that article saying that Mendota was a perch factory, and that's the exact kind of language I use when talking about Monona. So hopefully those fish don't disappear someday. Anyway, down on upper mud, dredge holes good, weed edges for panfish, or you find them suspended out there sometimes. Otherwise, the shallow flats around the dredge hole usually hold some good bass if the weeds aren't too bad. Otherwise, Lake Wabisa, kind of the same thing. Weed edges, weed edges, weed edges. Find those, you'll find fish. I've been hearing about some good action up here on the north end, same thing down on the south end, and basically everywhere in between. Haven't heard anything about any perch out deep or anything like that. Heard about some walleyes up near Hog Island, Babcock Bible Camp area over here, and I guess I haven't heard about any muskies specifically off Wabisa, but they're in there too. Down on Kegonsa, it sounds like I said in the intro, the water's cleaned up here a little bit. It has been green the last couple of weeks, so that's good to hear. That rain always helps with those algae blooms. Bluegills on Weedlines, they were suspended out over deep water. I haven't heard about that bite in a while, and a little bit of walleye action off the state park. Otherwise, out and about, Rock River, Indian Ford, and Jefferson dams have both been producing decent catfish bites, some good eater-sized fish there. Haven't heard about any big flatheads yet, but they usually start to turn on here in the fall. Koshkonong, haven't heard a ton going on up there. Sounds like decent walleye and white bass out in the main lake. That's mostly a trolling bite. And I did see on Bait Box on the Rock, which is an awesome bait shop here in Fort Atkinson, they said that there were crappies and white bass, I think, moving up into the rivers. So if you find yourself down there and want to check that out, stop by Bait Box on the Rock. They're a great shop. Beaver Dam, great catfish bite going on up there. You can fill a bucket full of eater catfish. And I've heard about some crappies too. Devil's Lake, trout are suspended out there, 15 or so feet down. Otherwise, the river was up. Just yesterday, it was up pretty high down here by Musky, but it was up by the Dells. It was at fishable levels. So that's just all the water we got last Saturday working its way out of the system. Otherwise, the river is fishing well anywhere up and down the river, on the river itself. And we're not talking dams. You're going to want to look to outside bends like these, lower areas of sandbars. You find a bridge somewhere, fish below there. There's always scour holes beneath bridges. If you can find gravel bars, maybe a little riffle below those, usually hold a little bit of deeper water with good smallies and walleyes you can find in there. But yeah, good fishing up and down the river. Should be plenty of sandbars available if you're trying to camp over there. Otherwise, like I was saying, dams are all you really need to know for finding fish on a really nice mixed bag of fish anytime in the summer. So that it'll be like that up and down the river. Since we're on the path here, Lake Wisconsin sounds like a good panfish bite still in a lot of the shallow bays, and good bass action close to shore. The walleye and sauger action from the few folks I've talked to sounds like it's slowed a little bit, and the size even before that was a bit of a challenge catching keeper fish. Otherwise, like I said, up and down the river, great smallie and walleye action to be had out there. Dams like the Dells are always have a nice mixed bag of fish backed up there. So Castle Rock, Petenwell, same deal there. Haven't heard a lot off the Mississippi River. It tends to slow down, at least for folks traveling that way from town here. But and I hear the Clements barge over here at Genoa is closed for till the end of the month. Sorry about that. Otherwise, over on the East Coast over here, Milwaukee's still kind of recovering from those floods. It looked like the flows were still pretty high. I think at 1,300 cubic feet per second in the Milwaukee River when I checked it yesterday. So I might give that just another week a rest. But they have good smallmouth and pike in there. But I talked to a guy the other day. He got a steelhead in there. In that high water, he caught a beautiful hen steelhead, and I've heard reports of kings being seen in the river. So king salmon are starting to swim up, and that's just from that big influx of water from the flooding we had. But kings are starting to move into the harbors. So that's always an exciting time, and it won't be long before they start to stage out, or before they get in. They're staging out beyond the harbors, but they'll be in the harbors soon, and then moving up into the rivers, I should say, very soon, which is an exciting time for everyone who enjoys that kind of fishing. I guess as far as trout fishing goes, like I said, I don't think we're going to have to worry about checking stream temps for a while. We got some cooler temps on the way, and um, I've been talking to some folks. The problem here the last couple of weeks has been stained water. I talked to some folks, actually just this morning, talked to a guy who was fishing the Big Green. He said that water was dirty yesterday, but starting to clear up, and they did well on nymphs and woolly buggers. And Gordon Creek, I hear, is fishing all right. Should be decently clear by the weekend, I would think. And smaller tributaries should be fine, I would think, even by now. But if you do find some clear water, or even if you don't, on the spinning gear side of things, suspending your sinking jerk baits like Rapala Husky Jerks or countdowns always work, as do crappie-sized tube jigs, work slowly through deeper runs and pools, and of course the old Panther Martin spinners are always a good bet. If it's live bait you're using, it's hard to beat a redworm drifted through runs and tailouts. On the fly side of things, we'll get into our Happy Fly Day feature here. Woolly buggers, nymphs, and stuff like that work any time of the year. Especially woolly buggers, they're a nice big black profile if you got some stained water, or maybe like a bigger like hare's ear. This is a black hare's ear nymph or something like that. Can bring fish, and the dirty water's nice. A lot of times you can stand right on top of those fish and just kind of high stick them and just do really well, even in just one run. Otherwise, if you got some clear water and are fishing mostly in the early mornings, maybe the evenings, you might come across a hatch of blue-winged olives, and we'll get more of those as we get into September, and caddis will start to come back a little more popular. But right now, it's not super effective. The big thing is going to be terrestrials, especially in the middle of the day. Once those bugs warm up and get moving, you got ants of any style. Crickets, beetles are great, but I'm a hopper guy through and through. So we got any number of hoppers here. You might want to look at smaller hoppers while they're still a little smaller, but they're going to be eating a lot of grass and growing quick. And you can even move up into one of these. This is called a hop indicator, which makes a great indicator rig. But if you're not don't want to battle all the weeds and stuff just yet, wait till they come down in September. Smallmouth fishing on the Wisconsin River, Sugar River, Rock River, Pecatonica River, Picker River. We've got a bunch in our area. Are all great. We've got a bunch of flies here. Great streamers by Aztec Fly Fishing. Ben Lubchansky ties some awesome river flies, especially these Murdich minnows and crease flies on the Wisconsin River are hard to beat. And then we got good old poppers and stuff commercially tied here. So get out there and do some fishing. We got some gorgeous weather ahead. I think that pretty much does it for the report. I do want to thank you for tuning in. As always, feel free to call the shop at 608-241-4225 if you want us to expand on anything. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Post your comments and catches below. Always appreciate to see that. And good luck out there, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.